Hello, everyone, and welcome to this 4.5 hour edition of Open Source Intelligence, or OSINT, Fundamentals. My name is Heath Adams, and I'm going to be your instructor for this course. A really quick who am I? I'm a husband, hacker, teacher, gamer, sports fan, and owner of way too many animals. I'm the business owner and CEO at TCM Security. We are a cybersecurity consulting firm and educational resource. So we do anything from cybersecurity consulting, risk assessments, and ethical hacking. Really, companies pay us to attempt to break into their networks or attempt to break into their devices or buildings. You name it, we'll try to break into it. On the other side of that, we educate users on how to become ethical hackers and a lot of the different things that we do in this industry. We've taught over 200,000 students at this point, and the number seems to be growing every day. If you're interested in following me on social media, here are the links. I'm very approachable. You can come check me out on LinkedIn or Twitter, Twitch, or even here on YouTube. We have a ton of great ethical hacking and cybersecurity content, so please do hit that like button, subscribe, comment down below. We have full courses similar to what you're watching here today on ethical hacking and other related materials, so please do give those a look as well. If you're interested in learning more about TCM Security, we have the business side, which is tcm-sec.com, the educational side, which is the academy, and the certification side is the certifications. And now on to the course curriculum. So this is going to be the first 4.5 hours of a 9-hour course called Open Source Intelligence Fundamentals. Looking at the curriculum, we're going to cover what is open source intelligence. We'll talk briefly about note keeping, and we'll talk about the creation of sock puppets. And then we'll start getting into some of the fun stuff. We're going to talk about all different types of open source intelligence and how we can gather information through various methods. So we'll look at search engine OSINT and see what kind of information we can gather through search engines. And then we'll look at image OSINT and talk about reverse image searching and looking at EXIF data and identifying physical locations based on an image, which is really fun to do. We'll talk about email OSINT and how we can identify email addresses based on certain factors. We'll look at password OSINT and talk about breached databases. We're going to look at username OSINT and how we can tie a username from one location to perhaps another location or another website or resource, and what tools are available for us to do that. We'll talk about people OSINT. How can we search for people? How can we look for phone numbers and birth dates and resumes and voter records? And then lastly, we'll talk about looking through social media. So we're going to talk about different types of social media that are out there: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc., etc. That is where the course is going to stop. Now, the second half of the course does cover website OSINT, business OSINT, wireless OSINT, and then we build out a lab. So we actually use Linux and we'll go into a lab and we start working with tools to do a lot of this process and automate a lot of the process that you've seen before. And then we'll build out actual scripting and automation to automate even more of the process. We'll talk about different OSINT frameworks. We'll talk about report writing. We'll have a course challenge where you are challenged to identify different various items through open source intelligence. And then we'll even provide more resources after that. Now, this is the only point during this whole video I'm going to try to sell you on anything. The first 4.5 hours of this course is free. If you're interested in paying for the full course and getting the second 4.5 hours, you're welcome to do so. The price of this course is $29.99. I will link in the description a link to the Academy again. And just a little bit else about us is we do have tons of other courses. We have courses on ethical hacking, escalation, pen testing, Python 101. We've got Linux 101 courses for people who are more beginner, courses on phishing and malware analysis and mobile application penetration testing. And we're adding new content monthly. So we have new courses all the time. Our courses are highly rated. Our authors are well vetted, and we provide high quality content for no more than $30 a course. Or if you're interested, we also offer courses at a discount through bundling, and we offer courses through an all access pass where you can access all of our courses for $30 a month. So with that being said, that's the only time I'm going to pitch you throughout this entire video. We're going to go ahead and move on now to the Open Source Intelligence Fundamentals course. So before we start learning about OSINT, I must make an important disclaimer. This course is going to teach you some incredibly powerful techniques on finding information on individuals, on organizations, and just as a whole. This information that you gather and these techniques that you gather should be used from an ethical standpoint. At no point should you be researching anybody with malicious intent or be using this information for any other reason than you have been told or have a contract to do so. So, unless you are a part of an investigation or in part of a client that has told you, I want you to research us or a person in particular, this information that you learn should only be used against yourself for the time being. With that being said, I want to make sure that you understand again, this is a fundamentals course. This is something that is going to teach you, I would say, 70 to 80% of the techniques that can be used. You can absolutely go more thorough. You can absolutely take this deeper, build out your own tools, and take a lot of techniques and apply them in other places. This is a methodology based course. I'm going to, again, teach you the methods, and that's what I want you to take away from this. Make sure you're understanding that the methods here are what's important. The tools come and go. Websites go away all the time. Tools break, they just don't work anymore. The methods do not change significantly. Okay, so make sure you understand that. Make sure that you're using this in an ethical manner. This is very, very dangerous. Potentially, that you can use this can be weaponized. This is something that the good guys use and the bad guys use. And I'm putting this course out there for the good guys. So make sure that you are using this ethically. Make sure you're understanding the methodologies you go through this. And make sure that you're not only respecting your own privacy, but the privacy of other individuals. So, with that being said, I'm really ready to start into the course. I'm excited. Let's go ahead and get this done. We're going to go ahead and start talking about what is OSINT in the next video. I'll see you over there. Welcome to the first real video in this course, and it's just going to be a brief introduction. We've already talked about this in the course introduction, but I do want to add in an intelligence life cycle into the conversation so that you understand what this is. So again, what is OSINT? OSINT is open source intelligence. So we're going to be using a multitude of methodologies in this course in order to gather information on people, on businesses, and other items that is all publicly available. This is all public information. Okay, so this is open source to us. So with that being said, and I've already talked about this, I really want to talk about the intelligence lifecycle just for a minute. So when we talk about the intelligence lifecycle, there are 5 parts to the intelligence lifecycle. Now there's planning and direction. So those are your who, what, when, where, why type deal. So let's say that somebody has instructed you to gather information. Maybe you have signed a client and the client says, I want you to gather as much information about us that you can. And you say, okay, we'll do that. So then you start doing your planning. Who are we going to target? What are we going to target? Why are we going to target them? When are we going to do it? These are all identified in the planning and direction phase. Once you have identified and your target, you've done your planning, you're ready to move on, then you go into the collection phase. And majority of this course is about collection. That is the methodology that we're going to be doing. How do we gather image information, or how do we gather data from an image? What can we tell about an image? How do we gather the image itself? How do we gather names from an organization or people that work at an organization? Or how do we gather information about people? This is all collection. So the majority of our time in this course is going to be spent in the collection phase of the intelligence lifecycle. From there, we're going to move on to processing and exploitation. We're not going to do any exploitation or really any processing. Processing is about taking the data that you gathered and starting to interpret it. You're starting to process the data, okay? That moves into analysis and production, which is Similar in the sense that you're analyzing the data and you're putting it into, I guess, an intellectual form. You're starting to take all the data points that you've gathered and you processed, and you're saying, hey, this data point ties to this data point, that ties to this data point, and this is why. Okay. And then you produce a report, you produce some sort of document, you provide that, and you put that into the last phase, which is dissemination, and you present that to your client or your customer, whoever it may be that requested the information, and you make sure that they can understand it. So from the get go, this is a never ending life cycle, okay? And this doesn't have to be done in a specific order. You can start doing your planning, right? And then when you get into the collection phase, you might realize, okay, I'm starting to gather some data, but I don't know what to do with it. Go back to planning and add more stuff in, right? Do more planning, go back to collection. Or you could be processing the data and analyzing the data as you're collecting it. And then going back and collecting more data to provide more evidence for what you're collecting. So this life cycle is always ongoing. I just want you to understand that this life cycle exists. This is one of the core things I think that are taught in most intelligence type courses, and we're briefly going over it. I feel like you could do an entire course on this. I just want you to understand that in this course, we are primarily going to be on the collection phase. We're going to do a challenge that gathers some information, and we'll analyze some of the information, and then we will put that into a report and understand what a report looks like. But we're not going through the full life cycle in a true sense. We're going to work more on collection phases. But I want you to be aware that the life cycle exists and that it's super important for the intelligence field. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead now and move on to the note-taking part of our course. Before we can start diving into the meat of this course, I want to make sure we talk about taking effective notes. There are a lot of different note keeping tools that are out there, and I kind of want to show you some of the favorites that I have, show you a little bit about how I take notes, and just give you an idea of how you should be working through this course and taking notes, and even with your OSINT and when you're doing OSINT on somebody else, how you should be taking those notes as well. So the first thing I want to point out is I'm going to show you my notebooks, and then we'll kind of get into tools. So here's one notebook that I've used. If you've ever taken a course with me, you've probably seen me point this out, and this is called Keep Note. Now, Keep Note is quite old. I think it's 7 or 8 years old since the last time it's been updated. So there is a little bit of dating to this, but it's still very effective. I like using it, and it's just very, very simple. So you can see here, at one point I was studying, and I have group notes in here for different things, but I was studying for CyberArk and I was studying for Thycotic, which are different privilege access management tools. And I was taking notes on these. So I was watching some videos, and there were different things for these different potential exams or courses that I was doing for CyberArk, and they had different sections. So what I like to do is I like to come in here and say, okay, here's this exam I'm taking. So you could see a CSP, and then they have different subtopics. And in those subtopics, you can have, see, I just numbered them 1, 2, 3, whatever. But you can also come in here and just create a node. So say there's a subtopic of a subtopic. You can also come in here and just create a new child page and have a subtopic here. And you can just say something like subtopic, right? And this is great. So what I come in here and say is I'll take maybe screenshots of something that was interesting, like a slide. I might put some notes in here for myself. And I'm not going to come in here and tell you exactly how to take notes. I'm coming in here and telling you how I take notes and giving you ideas. If there's something that works better for you, if you're not visual, I'm very visual. So I like to see, instead of typing this all out, I like to see kind of a picture of everything. So you'll see me take a lot of screenshots and pictures of different tools and then put them into my notes, because that's how I remember things. Unless it's something that specifically I want to copy and paste. And I'll kind of show you that as well. But it's good to have good notes, organized, easy to click on. If I want to know something about DevOps, I just come in here and click on it and read more about the CyberArk DevOps. Now, this is Keep Note. Keep Note is fantastic, but I understand people don't want to use an outdated tool, or they're not on Windows or something else. So, oops, I just pulled it up and then clicked off of it. So maybe you want to use something different. This tool is called Notion. Now, Notion is a little bit different from a note-taking perspective, but you could still resolve the same thing. There's a lot of nice templates here where you can actually have it. You see I have a workspace.
You can have this in the cloud. You could share links out. You can say, hey, I want to share my notes with somebody. You can have that out there, or you can make these private. It's very, very flexible. But you'll see that I do similarly the same thing. Like here's web app stuff. These are just my notes. But you can see I have some notes on GraphQL. I want to see more about GraphQL. Here's when I was studying GraphQL. I came through here. And again, I'm very visual, so I was taking pictures, right? And this just helps me. I can go through. It's almost like a slideshow. And then I take some notes here if I need it. If I'm looking at cross-site scripting, maybe I come in here and I have different things I want to look at. Like here's more within cross-site scripting, stealing cookies. Okay, now here I've got actual code put in here, and I could just come copy this code if I want to. And these are different ideas about stealing cookies that I've written in my notes. I take pictures, etc. So there's different ways here to do this, right? Now, before we get into the note-taking tools, I also want to go back and I want to show you one other part that I think is very important. So let's go to the subtopic. Let's say you're typing some stuff, right? You got notes and you want to take a picture, a screenshot of something. I use a tool called Greenshot. Now, Greenshot looks like this. You can take a print screen. You can see that this comes up now on the screen. And if I want to like copy something like this, and this copy, actually that was terrible. Let's copy like the side of the notebook here. I want to copy the side of the notebook. I can hit copy. I can open an image editor. Let me show you the image editor. You can bring it here, and there's some nice things. Like I use this to this day when I'm doing assessments or any sort of just nice picture taking. You can come in here, you can add a border. You can invert this if you want to, or re-invert it there. Have your border, right? You can highlight different areas. Like say I want to point something out specifically. This is very nice. If I want to obfuscate some data, I can come in here and say, oh, that's very sensitive. Let's go ahead and obfuscate that. So there's a lot of flexibility in the tool. And I'm not going to walk you through every single thing. I'm just saying that there's a lot of flexibility and ease of use here that is great for note taking. Then you could save the file, or you could just say copy. So say I want to just copy the image. Now I could take it back and put it in my notebook. And there it is. I just pasted it in my notebook. Super easy stuff. So you're able to snip exactly what you want. There's editing that you can do. You could take full screen pictures, all kinds of stuff just with this tool. Okay, so fantastic tool. Now let's get on to the tools here. I've highlighted a few, and I've highlighted KeepNote. So keepnote.org. You can come here. You can download it. It does work on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. If you want to use that, absolutely fine. Other options, Cherry Tree, very great. Cherry Tree is kind of like the updated KeepNote. You can see it's very similar. Let me make this a little bit bigger here. You can see that it's very similar on the side here, where you have kind of that parent node, the child node, extra children underneath, whatever the verbiage is for that. But this is exactly what it looks like. So you can come in here and type all your stuff. I think it's great. There's different themes and stuff that you can organize here as well if you don't like the dark theme or the light theme, however you want to take it. OneNote, of course, is great. You can store out in the cloud. Fantastic. If you use Microsoft OneNote, I think it's awesome. Notion is the one I was showing you, Notion.so. Same deal. I think this is fantastic. Being able to publish your notes in the cloud, great idea. Joplin is another one. I hear very good things. I've never used this, but I hear very good things about Joplin. So again, just expanding the horizons. If you use one of these, great. If you're not into note-taking, get into note-taking. I'm going to provide you a bunch of options. If you look below this video, you will see the references, okay? The references will have all of these there. You can pick one. You can pick all of them if you want. Play with them, see which one works best for you. Now, Greenshot. Greenshot, I believe, is for Windows only. So yeah, it's Windows PC. If you do not have a Windows PC, then there is a tool called FlameShot. FlameShot you can use on Linux, okay? And I believe it works on Mac as well. You can see the different options it has, like where you can click and just grab a screenshot here. It's showing you right here about all the different things that you can do. Same thing as Greenshot, flexible, easy to use, very, very awesome when it comes to note-taking. So that's really it. I just wanted to kind of walk you through these things. Again, I will provide the links and the references below. But if you aren't taking notes, take notes now. There's going to be a lot of information that I'm going to provide to you, and it's going to seem potentially overwhelming. There's a lot of websites, a lot of methodology, etc. You're going to want to have a good, concise notebook when it's all said and done. So that's my spiel. Hopefully you listen. I can't force you to take notes, but I strongly recommend it. So that is it for this video and this section. I will see you in the next section when we start talking about sock puppets. All right, now let's talk about sock puppets. If you've never heard the term sock puppet before, you can think of it as this online identity that is not who you are, or it's a misrepresentation or somebody you're not. That's the most simple way to put it. You think of a sock puppet as a fake account, alternate identity, etc. And the point of having a good sock puppet is to not draw attention back to yourself. Okay, so if we're doing, say, an OSINT investigation, or if we're looking into research, or we're looking into other people, our goal is to never let the person know that we're looking into them. So ideally, we're going to create this fake identity or fake person, and this fake person might have a Twitter account, might have a Gmail address or Proton Mail or something along those lines. They might have a Facebook. And this should never tie back to you, meaning it should never really tie back to your IP address. It should never be used on a device that links to your personal information. It should never be used on a phone that ties to you. There's a lot of depth that we can go into to avoid tying our name to a sock puppet. But the purpose is really to be able to have an account that looks legitimate. So that means creating content on these accounts. Making sure that you don't just create a bunch of fake accounts and then start doing research on somebody. There should be some history to these accounts. We need to make sure that if we have a Twitter, that we're posting on Twitter. If that we're on Facebook, maybe we have some Facebook connections and we post on our wall. We need to make sure that we establish some data to us, and so that we look more legitimate. Okay, but the main goal of the sock puppet is to do research and to try to investigate others or use the internet or etc. There's a lot of purposes, but for OSINT, to investigate others without being able to identify back to yourself. And we're going to use that in this course, at least just as an introduction. I'm going to teach you the methodology and some of the steps that I would take. And then we're not going to go through all those steps because they're incredibly on the paranoia side, but they're good practice, but we're not going to do that for the purpose of this course. I'll introduce them to you. We'll walk through them, but there's no purpose for this course that you're going to need to do those. So this is a brief introduction of what a sock puppet is, why they might be important. And the next video, we'll actually walk through how to create some sock puppets. Okay, now let's talk about creating sock puppets. What I want to introduce you to are a few different blog posts, and I'm going to link these down below. These were essential for me when I was learning about sock puppets and why they were important and the differences between types of sock puppets and all that. This is extra homework, if you would say. Okay, the first one is from Jake Krebs. I think he does a very good blog on how to create sock puppets. The methodology is pretty straightforward, and there's some things that I really kind of want to point out. Skipping over the methodology, he kind of talks about the different types of sock puppets that you could have. So saying right here, he's talking about there's two different types of sock puppets. You could have a sock puppet that is a full-on, you go all of the way to make sure that you have this person that you create or this persona that you create that is fake. They have that history we're talked about in the past, and it takes a lot of time. Now, your sock could be identified. There's what's called sock hunters. They could easily pick up on you and say, "Hey, this person's a sock. Let's just acknowledge this account as a sock," and then your whole persona is gone. You have to start all the way over again. Okay. Another thing that he points out is there is something else. There's actually known sock accounts. He points out a really good one that I've known about for a while here is Shakira Security, right? Shakira Security is not Shakira, right? But it is an account that has 2,500 followers. It's somebody that posts relevant information and they are respected in the community, but nobody knows who they are. They know that this person is not Shakira. They know that this person is a fake personality, but they're still respected. So there's a couple ways that you could take the sock accounts. For this purpose and what we're doing, this is for investigative purposes. So we're creating a persona, but you could still have this kind of secondary option where it's an account that you can still relate to OSINT. It doesn't have to tie to you. There's quite a few people in the industry that have these sorts of accounts that are very popular, and you have no idea who's behind the account. So something to think about. But for the sake of creating an actual sock puppet, we're going to kind of take option 1 and go through it. I think this is a fantastic read. I think it's really good to point out. He kind of goes through his steps and what he would do. I think it's great. I'm going to link that. Same thing with this. Another article on how to create a sock puppet, what a sock puppet is. I think it's important. I'm providing my methodology and what steps I would take. I think it's important to understand other people's methodology, what steps they might take, what they might do in their process, and their thoughts through it. Okay. This is very beginner OSINT. I'm not trying to take you down the depth of the rabbit hole that could be a sock puppet. I kind of want you to understand the general basics, why they're created, how we can do it, and kind of go from there. So there's also this great Reddit post here. Let's block these notifications. That goes on and just says, here's his process for creating an account. And I found this about a year ago, and I thought, this is perfect. This is something that is absolutely in my wheelhouse. So what I want to show you is kind of what it is, why he walks through it this way. We're also just going to kind of generate some random stuff, figure this out on our own, and then we'll kind of go back to his details, and I'll explain some of this because we're not going to go out and buy a SIM card. We're not going to go out and buy a phone, but there is importance to this. So I think that you should read this. I think that you should understand what the next steps would be if you were doing these things and how you can take this even further. But we'll kind of talk about creating our identity first, and then we'll come back to a thought like this. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is, if you look below the video, there is a fakenamegenerator.com. You can click that link. You can also just type this into a browser, and we're going to generate a random person. Now, you can come in here. You could say my person is random. We could be a male. We could be a female. We could say, we are American from the United States, blah, blah, blah. We can set different types. So for the United States, we have American, or it says American and Hispanic, but here we are American. And there's thought here too. One of these articles, if you take the Art of the Sock article here, talks about the benefit of being a female, because men, let's face it, are gullible, especially when there's a female around. Many of the great OSINT and social engineers are women. They're great at it. And I feel like men, we're vulnerable. So having a woman personality, regardless if you're a man or a woman, could be a good idea. Again, these articles go into the reasoning and the why, and I think they're great. But here, let's just say we generate somebody at random, shows up to be this Roger T. Davis. You get all kinds of great information here. You can get a fake mother's maiden name, social security number, coordinates, phone number, birthday. Let me make this bigger just so everybody can for sure see it. You can have a fake email address, all different sorts of stuff here, right? Passwords, whatever you want. I think this is really great. It's great for just kind of getting some ideas and maybe tailoring this person to who you want to be. So let's say we have a Roger. Say we come up with Roger. Roger's going to be our personality and what we're going to do. So we could take Roger and we can go and maybe create a picture for him. There's a great website here that is this person does not exist. So you could see here that there's a person here, but this is completely AI generated. Okay, so let's refresh this until we maybe get somebody that we feel like might be a Roger. So we got this guy. Maybe this guy could be it. We do have an age on our persona. It doesn't really matter. Okay, 64 years old. Obviously, this isn't going to be him, but we don't have to keep the age or date. Okay, it could be a younger Roger if we want. And then we could take this picture. And the nice thing about this picture is if you were to put this, which we haven't covered it yet in the course, but if you were to put this in a Google reverse image search, or you were to put this in like a TinEye or a Yandex, this image is not going to come back. This person doesn't exist. We have seen failures in the past of where sock puppet accounts or fake accounts use somebody else's photograph, right? We've all heard of that. When we talk about like online dating, we've heard of the term catfish, right? Catfish being somebody using fake photos to catfish other people or act like they're not. You can think of it the same way. A lot of those people have been busted. And if you watch the show on MTV, which is actually called Catfish, you will see that they go and they actually take the images that people have been sent and they put them through a reverse image search to see if those have been found. A lot of times they'll pick up fake accounts or fake people because they'll tie to other users. And that's exactly what you don't want to have happen. Again,